And good morning, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff underscore 2020. And this morning, I'm looking forward to another conversation with our good friend and colleague and the great investigative journalist, Mr. George Webb. So let me hook up my Skype here, and we'll be with you in just 1 second with George Webb on the screen. And true to my word, here we are. Hey, George, how are you?
Hey, John, great to be with you here from our great capital here in Washington.
I thought I recognized that place.
Well, they have the lid on today. The Opium Dome, the Opium Bowl isn't open, but it's nice to know that we just got $850,000 to our Pakistanis who were trying to get a laptop and some Blackberries out of here in a room over there at the Longworth office building. So it's nice to know that Zoe Lufgren, in her wisdom, got another $150,000 to Imran Awan for all of his work. Who knows? Maybe it's for the 2020 election too, because we have new data now, John, from Sidney Powell yesterday in Exhibit 105 in the Michigan filing, which talks about Bolton Square, I'm not kidding you, Bolton Square in Karachi, in their filing, not my filing, their filing. So I just want to let you know, all roads lead to the State Bank of Pakistan, because it's in their filing, not mine.
There's a lot going on here, George. My question is, why the timing? Is it more than a coincidence that the Awans are getting this money at the same time that Mike Flynn is getting his pardon?
Yeah, well, Mike Flynn, now with the pardon, can talk about the Blackberries. He can talk about, we know he had a Blackberry communication with Kislyak. How far back did that go? How far back did those communications go? We know there's a Blackberry pair that Sidney Powell asked for with Mifsud, right, who was a part of the dossier here in 2016. How far back did that go? The Blackberries are the answer because they tell us when these relationships started and when these machinations started. And I don't like hearing silence, especially after somebody gets a pardon. I'm not turning on Mike Flynn. I'm just saying that you need to come forward. If you have information that's going to save the Republic, wouldn't now be a good time to share that information?
One would think so, with his lawyer advocating on behalf of Trump's reelection. At the same time, it seemed like their interests, if they ever are going to converge, they would be converging right now. That's something that's been in the back of our minds, you and me both, for a couple of years now, as we've gone to these trials, and wondered, to what extent is Mike Flynn involved, and to what extent is he a white hat? Well, we may never know. The Awans are out of the country, and he may not be able to talk. Maybe he's signed some kind of an NDA or something.
That's possible. But if you look at the filing that Sidney made, and again, we just got it on Thanksgiving Day, folks. So we're analyzing it. They show this Bolton Square in Karachi where Hina Alvi and we had traced Imran Awan, or at least Imran Awan's identity, at working down there in the customs house in Karachi. That's the same Port of Qasim, the same port that's supposed to be involved in these Belt and Road activities, if you remember from 3 years ago with the Memphis Maersk and all that, right? So we know there's a lot of activity in the Port of Karachi. The same place that Obama, when he was coming up in his career, was going hunting with the key shipping families in Karachi, if you remember that relationship with his mother and so forth. So the only map with IP addresses now, we're not talking about speculation or fake news. We're talking about the IP addresses that are in the filing, in the Michigan filing, Exhibit 105, by an expert named NIA, N-I-A. Despite it being close to CIA, we're just going to roll forward and say he's a good guy and he's a good expert. And he puts one map, Bolton Square in Karachi, not steps from where Imran Awan had an identity at the Port of Karachi. Now, it's right next to the Pakistan State Bank, If you remember in our series, the key thing to know about state banks is there's no audit trail. There's no audit trail. It's a delight of the CIA to launder money this way. Bank-to-bank transactions normally are monitored through a SWIFT network. See those, the FBI sees those, it's called FinCEN. The bank-to-bank international national bank-to-national bank transactions are not seen. And it just so happens the two cutouts that Sidney Powell puts out, BVA and another one, I can't remember, I'm sorry, I get a little wind here. BVA, map to a stone's throw, literally, less distance than I am to the capital, to the Pakistan State Bank. They're Chinese businesses. They map to Chinese, supposedly to China, IP addresses. I haven't seen the IP addresses. They didn't publish them. But for some reason, and this could be, I mean, there is a possibility that Flynn and Sidney Powell are subtly breadcrumbing the conspiracy out in this manner by putting this state bank. This is in my Twitter today. You can see the actual map. You can see I put a second map right next to it where I show exactly where it is, literally closer than that capital is to me from where these cutout businesses were to the Pakistan State Bank. Is Mike Flynn trying to tell us something that, hey, this Belton Road, which was a Pakistani Chinese, I'll move behind here, John, we have a lot of wind. This Belton Road was a Pakistan-China project, not just a China project. So let's stop talking about Hunter Biden and just China and just the blackberries for China. It was also an Iran deal. So I don't know if that's any better, John.
Yeah, it is much better, George. Thanks.
Yeah. So again, we don't know, but these are questions we should be able to ask Sidney Powell, and she should be able to tell us rather than just dead silence, radio silence. We've been working on this for 4 years, and so we want to give her all the information we can. I'm right here next to Rahm Emanuel's ambulances here to provide wind cover.
All right. Well, thank you, Rahm. And, what do we say when Rahm goes by?
Gun your engine if you're a drug dealer for Rahm Emanuel.
Gun your engines if you're a drug dealer for Rahm Emanuel. And that's not stopping. I see the whole plan does appear to be to cut the country up into slices and make the mayors of the big local city, Chicago or Detroit or wherever, to be kind of the grand poobah of the area, and to be able to dole out the favors and the patronage and the drugs and everything else under the new regime, which appears to be courtesy of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. I've been reporting a lot on that on my channel. I don't know if you've had a chance to follow what I've been doing, but George, it really does look like this guy is making his move. He's coming in to take over, and the heck with our judicial system, the heck with our Congress. They've got the big corporations on their side, and these people are going to exert their power simply by saying no. If you don't have a vaccine, no, you can't go into my grocery store. No. What comments do you have on the progress of that side of the investigation into, who's really behind this?
Well, so I'm going to worry about Klaus when they reconvene in Davos, I think in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have been following it. Peter Duke also has been following Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset, and is Bitcoin going to become the new second currency, and the U.S. dollar going to be repegged against Bitcoin, and all that sort of financial reset that the folks think. Right now I'm worried about the thread that's hanging with the election, but I'm keeping my eye on these folks because they do give you metadata. They do give you tells about where they're heading. And I do believe that Schwab is doing a lot in terms of preparing people for dark winter. He's preparing people for the reset. You have John Kerry out there, another BlackBerry holder, covert BlackBerry holder, talking about the Great Reset, talking about the Great Unwash, sort of making deplorables noises, sort of saying, hey, the same bioweapons that we spent so much money over the last 20 years developing here in the Congress for the Mujahideen, supposedly to get to the Mujahideen, right? Those 5 programs that we've outlined in our series, what if they used them on us? What if they used them on us? I saw your show last night, John, with the Phantom virus, and you have a lot of talk there about how the weapons programs that we put in was a phantom. The weapons money that we put in and sent terabytes to Pakistan and terabillions to Pakistan, how those development labs, those 5 different bioweapons programs, how that technology got used on the Belt and Road to clear the path for the Belt and Road, but now also could be used to do these lockdowns here in the United States. And this could be Klaus Schwab signaling we're done with the weak virus, the mock virus. We've gone through all the preparations and so forth. Now we're ready to unleash the Kraken, which the Kraken has also been associated with bioweapons. It's also associated with cryptocurrency as well. So there's one of the first internet currencies. So that's why I'm so focused on what Sidney Powell is putting out, because I know she's a Defense Department lawyer. I know she has the pipeline to this information that would crack the case open, really crack the case open, really release the Kraken, crack open the BlackBerry network that did all these things over the last 20 years. But, you know, from what I saw in your program last night, John, with the Phantom, I saw them getting the stuff that has been widely reported, you know, the gain of function stuff that was happening at the University of Carolina, that was happening at the University of Texas, it was happening at Duke, it was happening at these major universities, University of Oklahoma and so forth. But those are just the rinses. What I'm just saying is that's just the last fluff and fold in the laundry process. The real billions, and I'm not talking about the $1 million fluff and fold. I'm talking about the big, heavy cycle money laundering, billions and trillions going into these bioweapons. Okay, it's the bookends. If you want to have bookends in your mind, think about Dark Winter 2002. You read about it last night in Phantom Virus. Think about that as your beginning with James Woolsey, right down here at National Defense University, starting off the process, and now this is the other bookend, right, where we've done the mock virus now across the world, and he talked a lot about that last night, your book. And now, is this the Kraken? Is the Kraken the real virus, the lethal virus coming? There's 5 versions, so we don't know which one we're going to get, but is that the Kraken that's coming, the Dark Winter that's coming? Biden keeps talking about the Dark Winter, so it scares the hell out of you.
Well, I suppose I've saved myself by not listening at all to Biden. So I'm not going around scared. As a matter of fact, I've been very, very calm compared to the way I think the media has been trying to get everybody ginned up to be afraid, because it does look to me as though the lockdown for the virus is going to lead to a lockdown for the green revolution and things that Harley Schlanger talks about with reinventing our economy from the top down and eliminating our small business base that, you know, is the foundation of our system of freedom. So that aspect of it is huge, and I'll continue talking to Harley about it. But let me get to one more specific thing, which is the apparent assassination of this scientist in Iran. What can you tell us about that?
Well, any name that starts out with Fock is easy to start a mnemonic, right? So Fakhri's Day is your guy, and he is the key contact, John. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to push my books. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just saying he is the key guy that worked with AQ Khan. He's the key guy who worked with AQ Khan.
Wow.
For 30 years in getting Iran to be a silent partner in this nuclear development, selling these small nuclear reactors. And we say it every way we can. You played a little jingle last night where I was saying Strokes. Why is this 7 different members of the Stroke family all involved in moving nuclear stuff? Why do we have a Farsi-speaking trucking company as the exclusive agent to move the uranium and the tanks? Why is it all Farsi, Farsi, Farsi? Why is Battelle, the person doing the small reactors, right? Several series of small reactors. We've been saying it's the Farsi pipeline into Columbus, Ohio with Lisa Page and Peter Strzok for 3 years now. For 4 years, even before we knew who was Peter Strzok, we were there looking for the missing uranium. We've been saying it, that these reactors can be used in fracking. They're fracking reactors. It's like they're not much bigger than this ambulance. Not much bigger. They're getting smaller and more portable. They call them microreactors. If you believe what Deep Uranium was telling us, that the CIA already had bigger reactors there in like little train stations along this sort of Belt and Road between Iran and China. And the CIA has been going about replacing them with smaller reactors. And Fakhri's day, the guy who was murdered, was the key guy getting that technology. And guess what? He's also got a Hezbollah back channel here to the United States, here to Capitol Hill, here to the terabytes going to Pakistan. They came right out of the Library of Congress, right over there, right? Terabytes to Pakistan, right? He's the key guy. We've identified the back channel, the Hezbollah back channel. That's Al-Attar. We identified another back channel named Fadl Allah. He is the number one Shiite cleric, Fadl Allah. And Imran Awan just happens to be sending, on the 123 email, John, just happens to be sending messages to the Tegwa Fadl Allah. Of all the different people to go talk to in Salisbury, you know how far Salisbury is from Washington, D.C., John? It's not close. Imran really doesn't have to leave here and drive 5 hours down there to change an air filter. The 123 agreement is the same agreement that nations signed saying they won't do bioweapons development. They won't do nuclear development. Isn't it interesting that all the information was going to the 123 Dropbox, right? And he's communicating with someone who shares the name of the top Shiite cleric, right? All signs point to Battelle. All signs point to Peter Strzok. You know, it just, but for me, I guess I have to explain it a little bit, you know, keep going over it, keep trying to simplify it. But all the pointers, now with Sidney Powell pointing us to the Karachi Bank, they all point to this Belt and Road, small reactors for the Belt and Road. Peter Strzok can't kill all the people involved in these programs, John. He can kill one of the top scientists, the guy who was working with A.Q. Khan. He was the key guy who was back channeling all of our technology for years. For years here, right? He was back channeling all this nuclear technology until 2005, 2006 here. Well-known story to Iran. We've identified 2 Hezbollah back channels that Imran had with terabytes going to Pakistan. So we talked to the key FBI agent that was looking for the key CIA guy in the free trade zone in Iran at Kish Island. His name's Bob Levison. They're thwarting her. They're thwarting Robin Gritz and not telling her that there's these Russian oligarchs making these 747 trips in and out of Tehran. This is Oleg Deripaska. She told me to my face. You can ask Robin this today. Did Bob Mueller tell you about the 2009 747 trip to Tehran? No. Weren't you the officer? Weren't you the key special agent working on the case to find Bob Levison? Yes. Did he tell you about the 2016 747 flight by Oleg Deripaska into Tehran? No. Huh. Don't you work for the same FBI? Wasn't Mueller the FBI director at least for one of those flights? Why? Because it's a covert program that they're hiding from the American people. CIA is hiding this from the American people. It's going to be David Petraeus. Petraeus owns the company that did the election hacking, SBB, Serbian Broadband, and United Group through KKNR, like we said 4 years ago. Isn't that interesting, John, that he just happens to own, David Petraeus and a group of generals just happen to own the place where Sidney Powell is saying the hacking came from? I don't know. It sounds like military hacking to me. These guys want to cover their tracks. These guys want to cover their tracks. You have to, it's great to put a lot of dots on the page, which Sydney finally did. Thank God she did. And I give her credit on the Thanksgiving Day release. But you have to connect the dots, and you have to connect them to say what's really happening for people to understand what's really happening. These are covert programs. The only reason why everybody up here in Capitol Hill doesn't know about them is because they're using covert devices. I'll move over here with the wind.
Yeah, thanks. A lot in that, George. Could you clarify for me? You mentioned in talking about Peter Strzok and the man that was assassinated. Apparently, are you suggesting that Peter Strzok might have had a motive to get rid of this guy? And could you explain that?
We've talked about motive, means, and opportunity. I heard you talk about that last night, John, as the key Arthur Conan Doyle. We've talked about means, method, means, motive, and opportunity for 4 years on this channel, as you know. If I know that my father and I have been a key conduit, because we can speak Farsi, we're the key go-betweens to the Iranian nuclear program, okay? The number one Atoms for Peace country.
It's too much wind, George. It's blowing we couldn't even hear your word.
I'll go behind. Okay.
Thanks.
So I'll just say this. If you're the key linchpin, communicator, courier, go-between, back channel, whatever you want to call it. If your family is that key family, okay, Farsi speaking, where you know all the tribes that are on the way between Iran and China, right? So you hold the key. This is Peter Strzok's seniors, knew all about all these Uzbek tribes and Tajik tribes and all this stuff. And you worked in that area. You can say, hey, we need CIA nuclear power plants all along the way here, because what if they cut the power on us? We have to have an independent place to land our planes, etc. Right? So you can be secretly consuming, under the auspices of doing good for America, you could secretly be consuming uranium, right? But then you could see an opportunity. You could say, hey, wait a minute, we can also sell the new ones. We not only know about the old ones that are there. Again, deep uranium. The reason I call them deep uranium is because uranium is used in reactors, right? He's saying that there's these reactors along the way. There's sort of a string of pearls. They even call it a string of pearls in these key train stations along the way. Think about the old transcontinental railway, where you had train stations every so often, right? That's where the reactors are. Why the reactors? Because they power all your construction. They power your lights, you power pumping water for all your sanitation. They also do your mining for you. Turn your jet turbines to push for these lift stations, for the gas complexes. Does the fracking for the heat the water for the gas. It's the whole thing. It powers the whole thing. If it would have been coal stations, I would have called deep uranium deep coal. Okay, somebody has to be the guy that gets the terabytes out of here on how to make these things in Columbus, Ohio with Battelle, and leak them to make them in Iran. There just has to be a connective tissue, right? How are you going to do it otherwise? You can't just walk into the University of Tehran and open a book and say, oh, I'm at the public library here, and I'm going to go ahead and make a microreactor. But go ahead and make a microreactor today. Well, isn't that cutting edge technology only being worked on by Battelle? Isn't that classified material? Yeah, it is. So now I need classified materials, and I send it in the form of terabytes to Tehran. Why is Edison Research, John? Why is Edison Research an exit polling company? Exit polls, if you follow elections. They follow elections every hour, and they interview people as they leave in Ohio or Michigan and say, who'd you vote for? And by exit polling, you can almost predict who's going to win the elections. So Edison Research is in Tehran. right? Okay, well, there's elections there too. I get it. That's fine. But why, John, is Edison Research communicating with Dominion servers the night of our election? What? This is in Sidney Powell's document. Why are they trying to throw the election? Look at the number of people. Count for me the number of people who said, I think Trump should lose 100 million to 0. Count for me the number of people who ran a counterintelligence investigation against Trump, called Crossfire Hurricane. Count for me the number of people who said he's a horrible person, he should lose, all these things. Walmarters, all this stuff. I only can think of one guy. I know the Belt and Road was about these microreactors, these fracking reactors. You either take the three informants that I have and triangulate them and look at the fact that all their stories correlate around this and how it was done to figure out the story, or you don't. If you don't, if you reject that testimony, then we'll all sit and watch the Republic go away. If you do take that intelligence that was given, all three of these guys saying that there is a secret reactor program and they are the backbone of powering the Belt and Road, you win. And the decision is yours, America. It's not mine. I've laid on all this information in all my books. So you either can believe that there's a string of pearls, they call it, that's their terminology. Harry the Greek has corroborated a lot of my reporting. Later on, they're buying 30 of these reactors now. Belt and Road, we're going to buy 30 of these new reactors. You don't kill AQ Khan's top contact unless you have a leak. You don't kill AQ Khan's. This guy, right, was in the middle of the whole Iran nuclear deal negotiations. Why do you wax that guy right now? Because you want to increase the speed of putting out these VTR reactors? VTR reactors, the versatile test reactors? Why would you kill him? Why would you kill your top scientist unless he was a leak? I just don't understand it. Why now? To me, it seems sort of obvious, but maybe, all roads keep pointing back again and again and again. Again and again and again. Peter Strzok. Sorry, a Capitol Police officer just walked by, so I wanted to do him that.
Oh, a bride is behind you now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, there's the wedding between China and Pakistan right there. It's called the CEPC, the China Economic Corridor, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and the bride beautifully symbolizes that partnership. It's going to be more than that. There's going to be the CPEC, there's going to be a substrate there that we don't know about that involves nuclear.
George, when you say Pakistan, I think you almost say Great Britain, don't you? I mean, as far as their intelligence operation, it's very much tied in many people's literature to Great Britain and MI5. I'll let you settle down there, but
I'm going to get the other side. Yeah.
What I'm thinking is putting together what you've been just saying with Mark Kulak's research and looking into Warren Buffett and Kiewit and all of this, all of these investments that are now looking like they are in support of the very same thing, the Belt and Road. Basically shipping American capital out of our country and into these projects for the benefit of a few elite people and their sponsors. Whoever sponsors this is whoever can own this thing, this Belt and Road with the uranium as the power. It starts to look like the biggest cash cow that has ever been built in the world, and like almost a big golden calf that they're all worshiping by committing evil deeds in order to get their peace. It's a biblical, almost Old Testament type of a scene. And who is going to lose in their mind is obviously the people of the United States, whose work has gone into all of the great military and all of the great patents and all of the great technological advances, our Silicon Valley and everything else. It's going out of our hands into this cabal, whoever's running it, China, Pakistan, and once again, I think we should get back to Henry Kissinger, who was in the news this week, and Madeleine Albright, because those two set the policy for decades, and it was a very, very warlike, just genocidal. I mean, I will say genocidal with regard to their policies, and it has got to be part of this whole thing of using whatever means are necessary to set up this golden calf that they can then worship for the next 1,000 years.
Yeah, well, Kissinger, KK&R, we've been talking about KK&R with Kissinger and Petraeus for a long, long time. Kissinger goes with Petraeus to all these Davoses and Bilderbergs and all this stuff, and they look to guys like David Petraeus for the inside view. We've talked about Madeleine Albright for her machinations in Kosovo, especially Belgrade, Kosovo. Isn't it interesting that she was so involved in 2016 with shepherding Carter Page in London before he went on his Russia trip, and now here's Madeleine Albright again surfacing right before the Serbian broadband company that they all bought has these connections into our elections through Dominion voting. John, you're so right. I mean, the British system was the Raj system in Pakistan and India. It was these local fiefdoms. It was these local people running franchises, for lack of a better word. I think that what we're looking at here with Imran Awan was the backbone of that. They were involved in more backbone projects of the transportation network, which is, if you think about the Belt and Road, it's going to be the opium super train. It's the opium super train. It goes all the way to Netherlands. Again, when I look for people that are hacking on the eve of the election, I can't remember exactly the town. I think it's Wuhan in China on the east coast of China, all the way. The Belt and Road train route goes all the way to the Netherlands. It's not Rotterdam. It's the spy center. I can't remember the name of it right now.
The Hague?
It's close to the Hague. To the Hague.
And Antwerp, maybe?
Close to the Antwerp, which is the big seaport in Belgium. But
but it's not Rotterdam anyway.
No, it's not Rotterdam, but it is this supposed area where these ex-paper clippers all settled down. The northern diaspora went, and with this Gesellschaft, with, again, the uranium guys, that's their piece in this thing. But anyway, all that intrigue, I mean, I'll lay you to the great economists like Harley Schlanger and yourself to go out. Even though I had a degree in economics, John, and finance, and the only thing I learned is you can teach a parrot to say supply and demand. And after that, there isn't much worth in an economics degree. But as far as the opium routes running or being the bankers, running the banking, that's certainly what's happening, because you can't put the opium money in a normal bank. You have to own your own bank. Al Capone taught us that. His only regret when he died, I wish I would have owned my own bank. Mm. So what do? You put it into construction like Belt and Road. To me, it's the same side, a different side of the same coin. Belt and Road is opium. And it's just a culmination of trillions given out by this Congress for the Iraq War, trillions given out for the Iraq War, the Afghan War, which still aren't over. And this new Biden-Harris administration is a signal that we're going to not only not quit, but turn up the heat on those wars. We're going right back to Syria, finish Assad off. We're going right back to, all the CIA operations in the northern part of Afghanistan. Pakistan, we're going to turn the heat back up and put things right where we left off when Hillary Clinton left office. Not because I don't think Joe Biden is a part of it. I think Joe Biden is what Peter Strzok calls compromised. The C in the MICE acronym. Biden, you can't have a family that's been more compromised with Hunter Biden, with every Russian Oconus lure that you can imagine on film, with every crime you can imagine. But he's compromised. Don't look at Joe Biden. Look at the people behind Joe Biden, the Madeleine Albrights, the Kissingers. Those are the people of the dark hand.
Yeah, and I've seen Joe Biden. People say he is a Knight of Malta, too. So that's a.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, it's the same crowd. It doesn't really matter if you're Catholic or Jewish or whatever. I mean, like Joe Biden famously said, "I'm a Zionist," right? Okay, Joe Biden, the Catholic Zionist, but it really is just about he's been compromised from the get-go, and I'm sad to say I still believe that the terrible auto accident that took his first wife and one of his children, I think that may have been his wake-up call to say, you know, you're with us, Joe. You can't get out of it, and you got to do what we say for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and that's coercion. That's the C in Peter Strzok's methodology, his CIA cookbook. That's the C. And hey, if Strzok even thinks you're leaking nuclear secrets from the old AQ-Con days, you're gone. Anybody who can fill in the blanks now, you're gone. And hey, these guys play tough ball, hardball, and it's just the way it is. And you know, I guess we could. I'm concerned about the election, John, and I'm concerned about putting together this amicus brief and making sure that it's received well by Sidney Powell. And I want to let her, you know, that you can have leave to amend. I want to let her amend her own complaint. You know, she misspelled district in the first line. She misspelled district in the second line. Not a good way to start out with a district judge. Amend the complaint. Put in the right spelling of district, and put in exactly the IP numbers that you're talking about in Pakistan. Put the IP numbers you're talking about in China. If you're saying these are Chinese companies, but they resolved to Bolton Square in Karachi, that's really critical information for people to know.
I was in Karachi 20 years ago. Was a little sketchy then, but mainly the main impression that I had of the city was that there was areas where people were comfortable, middle class, and those areas, they generally were safe and had the households would have servants, drivers, cooks, everything like that. But then there was an entirely different part of the city that was the most populated, and that was where the masses were. And these people were so poor, they didn't make even $1 a day, $2 a day. And the numbers, the sheer numbers of them is so impressive. And I asked my friend that I was with, I said, well, why don't they just rise up and take everything? And he said, because they don't know they can. They're uneducated. They've been reduced mentally to almost, you know, not knowing that they have any power at all. And that, I'm afraid, is where these people like their peasants to be, is to be, you know, a lot of them that are working 12, 14 hours a day for a pittance and not knowing, because they don't know history, they haven't studied government, they don't know any of the things that you and I take for granted that most people know. But we can lose that too. The idea of dumbing us down has been going on for decades now, and we've got to face that and turn around so that the people can understand what you're talking about when you talk about the Belt and Road, and when you talk about the historic connection between the Great Britain and their trade schemes, almost always involving opium when you break it down. the more I study it, the more I realize that the British Crown has been the biggest dope dealer in the world for 200 or 300 years now. And that's not stopping just because of one or two things. So this gets me to Sidney Powell and your point about how important it is that she win. And that is that she's been talking to Mike Flynn for some time, and Mike Flynn knows what's going on, and in many ways. So if the president is going to retain the presidency, he's going to have to find some way to make a deal, because that whole scheme is not going away just because just because President Trump is a good guy and he doesn't approve of drugs. That's all still going to be here. He's got to through his lawyers, work out something that he is still the president, but yet this horrific nightmare that I don't want to say communist, but it looks like a communist, an imposition of a Stalinist state upon us if we don't fight it. That's how seriously I take it, and I know you said you're very concerned about it too. So, yeah, and if anything I can do, George, about your amicus brief, if you want me to proofread anything, or I'm absolutely at your service, because I feel that you have a handle on this much better than most people, and I'd say better than 100% of the knuckleheads in Congress, who I think basically they've all been compromised somehow, like we've been talking about poor Joe Biden.
Well, Sydney might need your proofreading more than I do. I purchased Grammarly now, so I think of my spelling check error days, but I'm not in such a hurry. Yeah, district is easy spelling. And I'm not trying to get shots in. I'm just trying to say that if you have all these programs, release the Kraken and all this, get all these millions of people's hopes up, go on TV and talk about Venezuela and so forth, you're raising false hopes. Because I said this, I said, it's gonna come back to Serbia. The IP addresses go back to Serbia. I said it 2 weeks ago. Finally, the day before Thanksgiving morning, right, we get the information from her technical expert, which finally says Serbia. She finally, the night before, said foreign interference for the first time, right? She's been saying Venezuela and Chavez in 2004, which is not on the money. It's off. It's a mistake. I've said this. And this place right behind us, John, as you know, the Supreme Court,
yeah,
it's where you adjudicate foreign interference cases. If there is foreign intelligence, foreign operatives trying to affect the election of our election, it's adjudicated in the Supreme Court. This is why you can't do pro se anymore with the Supreme Court. Otherwise I would. They used to. This is why I'm hoping that she comes up with something that could be appealed and win on appeal to get here. But if you don't bring out the fact that PAC-ISI has been involved here, PTEC was involved before 9/11, PAC-ISI in 2016, PAC-ISI in 2020, if you don't resolve these IP addresses and talk about OTPOR, military intelligence, William Engdahl's been talking about it for forever with these color revolutions. If you don't bring out the military intelligence connections, you're not going to win. You're not going to win your case. It doesn't matter about the votes. If I win one vote, if I even tried to win votes, sorry about that wind. If I even tried to win votes and was unsuccessful with a foreign entity, I'm still guilty of a capital crime, right? So this is where I say, get away from arguing. I mean, it's okay to put in all the affidavits and so forth. That's fine. But we're talking about capital crimes here. That's why we got to focus on these places where foreign intelligence agencies are. This guy that, this Fadriz Day that was killed was very closely associated in London with the Institute of International Studies, the IISS in the city of London. I do think that there are some people that march to this sort of city of London drummer with the opium trade. Apparently, that is the thing that finances all these projects. I had a guy 3 years ago tell me Warren Buffett, a Biden guy.
Go back where you were, please. It's better.
I had a Biden guy tell me that it was a China-Russia energy deal that these BlackBerries were used for. Let's go ahead and let them make the decision rather than attacking me for bringing the information out, right? Got 118,000 subscriber stations coming after a 3,000 subscriber after we've been shut down twice, okay? Instead of attacking me, let the Supreme Court decide about the witnesses. Let the Supreme Court decide if Taggart is a good witness, whether Deep Blackberry is a good witness, whether Deep Uranium is a good witness. Let them decide. Don't take the tools, the arrows out of Sidney Powell's quiver. We're taking the arrows out of Sidney Powell's quiver every time we try to defame with all these slurs and attacks. We have to maintain our sensibilities long enough to get this thing in front of the Supreme Court. Once they certify, once the Board of Electors meet, I think that's December the 16th, I want to say. Maybe it's the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, right in there. It's over. Once the Board of Electors meet and they give the 270 for Joe Biden, it's over. So there you go.
Let me ask you, let's talk about Pennsylvania for a minute, because the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal Third Circuit, rejected President Trump's appeal from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, in which his challenge to that election, being certified, was denied. So now he has lost in court in Pennsylvania twice and in the Third Circuit once, and now everybody's saying on to POTUS. I mean on to SCOTUS, on to the Supreme Court for the Pennsylvania case. The complaint I saw from the Third Circuit's ruling was, show me the evidence. You made a lot of claims, but now you haven't put any evidence in it. Do you have any comments on the Pennsylvania case, George?
Yeah, I think the best case argument for Pennsylvania is, hey, just like Trump's saying for Wayne County, like we predicted, more people voted than there are residents of Wayne County. Just say, hey, mail-in ballots were 1.8 million. We had 2.6 million votes. Our case is a prima facie case. It's just somebody just looking at it cursorily, glancing, knows that that's wrong. You have to throw it out, right? Don't even go into I was a hockey rink away from seeing when they said I could observe or whatever, all these kind of ad hoc stories, I would just make the case, and you could do it with Twitter. It's like, hey, 1.8 million sent out, 2.6 came in. Only two ways I know that can happen. One, either they ran it through the machine twice, or they printed it twice. They printed dual copies. I say, look at it. Judge, what would you do? It's a very simple argument that you can make to a third grader, right? It's got to be one of those two scenarios. Either they ran them through twice, or they printed them twice. And if you can show linkages, to this dark hand, you're going to win, because it looks like there's only one of two possibilities could have either printed those. Either it was a domestic thing where they ran them through twice, or it was foreign interference where they printed them twice. And I say it was foreign interference where they printed them twice. I have a pretty good idea where they were printed. I'm not exactly sure. But Dan Gilbert certainly bought a lot of warehouse space in Toledo right before the election, right by the airport. He also has a red Ferrari that people sometimes drive down to Cobo Arena. The Illiches also have that red Ferrari. So I have ideas, but I don't have all the information. Sorry about the wind, John.
Yeah, it's okay.
One thing's for sure, we have the IP traffic. Why is Tehran Edison Research dialing in every hour to get vote totals across all of our 3,000 counties in America? Ladies and gentlemen of the Supreme Court, I'll do the opening argument right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court, here you are, here you sit. Don't you find it odd that Edison Research, a company based in Iran with sub-offices in Pakistan and Holland and so forth, we're all connecting to servers in these key swing states? Sounds like foreign interference to me. Sounds like a smoking gun. I'm not saying they changed the vote, but it sounds like a smoking gun that needs to be looked into before we certify this thing. What justice would sign off on that? Oh, well, you know, we don't like to adjudicate these foreign interference cases. Well, isn't that your job? Isn't that your job at the Supreme Court? To adjudicate foreign interference? Didn't we have 4 years, John, of the press here saying that there was foreign interference in the last election? We had 4 years of it. We still have it. They still believe that. They still believe Trump's a Russian agent. So if the last 4 years could have been foreign interference, we're only adding 1 day, November 3rd. We're only saying it happened 1 day. They were saying it happened for 18 months with Trump. Right? Americans can see this. They can see the double-sidedness of this, the hypocrisy of this. Trump can't bring a claim for one night, really between the space of 3:42 and 3:45. He can't make a complaint for 3 minutes. But we had to listen to Donnie O'Sullivan and, you know, Brian Seltzer and, you know, all the CNN anchors for 4 years tell us how Trump worked for Putin. Right? So I'm just saying, give Trump his hearing. There's no foreign interference. If the IP addresses just go to some, you know, nice Iranian, you know, Edison Research assistant that just happened to want to keep up on the elections that night, well, that's fine. But we have the IP addresses. Network analysis is not conspiracy theory.
I would think an expert, and you are one, could testify to these things, and that would constitute a prima facie case that the Supreme Court would have to observe. And I don't know what else we can do either, George. It's a desperate situation, and there you are right in front of the very Supreme Court itself where these things will ultimately be decided. One of the great things about our country is that we have a long-standing tradition, and that is that the Supreme Court is final, that the Supreme Court, whatever it does, is final, and we're not going to have a civil war over whatever the result is. So I think that's a blessing that we're still are going to hold on to no matter what they do. But if they don't overturn these what are obvious frauds to me, then they're weakening the country, and maybe that's a part of the agenda, the dark agenda I've been talking about this week, of foreign influence that just trying to weaken us, to make us, not only locked down, but economically and in our system of government, to make it kind of start to crumble in favor of their own hegemony for the next 1,000 years. I've been saying it all summer, and you have too, that this is it, man. We got to win this one, and your efforts have been unabating and terrific. I am very frustrated about the Iwans, about letting the Iwans just walk away. It seems to me that you might as well let the whole British aspect of this walk away if you do that. And it's got to be stopped. The one final thought about Henry Kissinger, and that is that Harley Schlanger said to me that Henry Kissinger is a British agent. And if he is a British agent, and he has had the control over all of these behind-the-scenes activities for decades now, then it makes sense that all of this stuff could have happened under his watch. Getting rid of him from this advisory board at this Secretary of Defense office may not seem very significant, and some people would say, "Oh, he's old; he's out of it anyway." But I think he's not. I think he still is alert and very, very much a part of what's going on behind the scenes. So, gosh, it's and Henry Kissinger is in my life a person who I think I associate with the enemies of my family personally and the things that have happened to my father. So, gosh, I would love to see Henry Kissinger fall even at this late date, and let Madeleine Albright and Hillary Clinton go down with him. That's my final word on it.
Well, I think you might have a lot of people in agreement with you, John. We're punching away every day at the numbers. We're looking at IP addresses. We're looking at IP traffic. We're looking at application level connections. So not just that these two places connected, that the Tehran locations connected, or the Pakistan locations, or the China locations, or the Serbia locations, not just they connected, but what applications did they talk to? We're looking at this SMOTE program, SMOTE, and we're looking at who wrote it, the Serbian guy who wrote it. We're looking at its ability to do this election, keep it close, keep it close, keep it close until you bring in the Warren Flood ballots at 342. So we're looking at all these things. The beautiful part about having a technical understanding is it's not a religious argument. It is or it isn't. It is this connection to the SMOTE program or it isn't. And we'll know the answer. But we have to have the Sidney Powells of the world talking like that, talking like this is incontrovertible evidence, yes or no. Okay, I'm this way, don't worry. So it's either us or nothing, right? It's either going to be the case red or black. It's not going to be white or black. It's not going to be indeterminate. And she needs to stop talking about Chavez, stop talking about Smartmatic, which is a competitor, stop talking about Seidel, which is a competitor, stop talking about Sequoia, which was a competitor. I realize there's some that debold and there was some overlap. Start talking about Dominion, start talking about Belgrade, start talking about SMOTE, start talking about the people who programmed it, start talking about the IP addresses that's in her own pleading, start talking about your own network expert and his maps going back to China and Pakistan. Metadata.
Folks, George has been saying follow the metadata since the first day I ever encountered him, and that is the answer. Follow the metadata. And thanks very much, George, for being with us this morning here from the Supreme Court. To support George Webb, go to his Patreon. He has a number of levels there. You can support him at Patreon/George Webb. And also Neighborhood News Studio, where you are, I think, maybe their prime correspondent at this point. Is that fair to say? At any rate, tell us a little bit about the plans that you have with Neighborhood Studio for the next few weeks or next couple of weeks. I know you're going back to South Carolina, and I thought people might like to have an update.
Yeah, we did an intro, John, for 4 correspondents, just to get away from the idea that Neighborhood News Studio is George Webb. We're working on one that has more like 20, 25. We'd love to include you in that, which is an outro, which is a little bit longer outro to highlight all the great citizen journalists. That's going to cost a little bit more money. but we want to show that these people are everywhere. There's, people we met from all over, John, in all of our charrettes. And everywhere that's trying to help. It's not one guy. I get to hold the stick, but that's what we're working on right now as an outro. We're working with Chip. Chip does great work for intros and outros for anybody who needs video work in West Palm Beach, Florida. So that's what we're working on, John. You can see the intro if you go to Neighborhood News Studio. It's 30 seconds long. The outro will probably be 3 or 4 minutes. But that's what we're working on right now.
All right. Well, George, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day in sunny D.C., and all the best to you. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. And I'll be back tonight at 8 o'clock for some more reading from The War Against the Weak by Edwin Black.
Thanks, John.